Hey guys, it's Kwana back again for another This Is Us recap and review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. It's been a long time. I shouldn't left you. um, yeah, the NBC left us high and dry for the Olympics. Mm, let's not get into how unclimactic that was this year. And so we were left without This Is Us, which we were all led to believe that we were going to get without interruption. Spoiler alert, at the end of this episode, we got an announcement that we're going to have another 2 week break. Not a fan. Dan, if you watch this video, we're not a fan of the fact that we thought we were getting the season uninterrupted, and now we're getting another interruption after a big interruption. Like, what you doing, man? Like, seriously, like, you couldn't work something out with them, ask them to put whatever is coming on another night. The president doesn't need to do a State of the Union address. Like, what is that? Whatever. So anyway, this episode, season 6, episode 6, I think. But I definitely know the title is Our Little Island Girl Part 2, which they very heavily promoted as like a Beth-centric episode. And I'm be honest, I was a little let down. I don't feel like we had enough time with Beth. And I felt like it would have been nice to have seen her in some more moments, especially at the studio, because it's been such a long time since we've gotten her at her studio. It's been at least like a whole year since we've seen any studio sequences with her. The last we got was during COVID's lockdown phase, the taping where she's video conferencing dance lessons with her students. And so I was a little let down by how little of Beth we got on this episode. We also got a little bit more of Rebecca and her new boo, Mike, I think his name is. I'm gonna call him PTA Dad because that's where he is, PTA Dad. And we also got a whole lot of Kate and Kevin and Madison and Toby and all of their drama. And the consensus seems to be online that no one is loving the direction that the show is going as it pertains to those characters, those 4 characters. I will go out on a limb and support Kevin. I know if you've been here for a while, shocking. I've never been a fan of Kevin's, but Kevin has had a lot of growth as a character. They have written him a lot of growth. And so to see the other characters not see the growth in Kevin and to throw things back at him that he really is making very logical assumptions about and decisions, it doesn't sit well with me. I'm usually not Team Kevin, and you're making me want to defend Kevin, and I don't like that feeling. So you need to pick a side. This is us writers. You need to pick a side. Either I'm hating Kevin or I'm loving Kevin, but then you can't make me have to do the heavy lifting of defending him. I just can't. It's too much. All right, so before we get into a full-on recap, guys, do me a favor and hit this subscribe button down below so that you can be here when we come back from the hiatus again. You can be here. You can get the notification when I drop another recap and review video. So this, albeit some issues, was a very enjoyable episode. And I'm going to say right now, it was saved by Susan Kelechi Watson, who co-wrote the episode. Brava, sis. The show does so well when it's writing for Randall and Beth, and it's so authentically them. And I don't know if there's a blurred line between Randall and Sterling and Susan and Beth, that it blurs, and they are really who they are off screen is who they are projecting on screen, and maybe that's why it feels so authentic. Suffice it to say, there have been very few moments that I have actually been anti either one of those characters. I know that there are people who have been anti Randall at times, but Randall always acts with others' best interest in mind and from a very selfless place. And I think people are not used to that. So sometimes people don't like that, or they feel like they have to judge him harshly because of that, because he's so much more emotional. But I'm always Team Randall. I'm always Team Beth. R&B for life. But let's go ahead and recap the episode, guys. So I don't want to go in chronological order. I'm going to save the best for last. So let's go in true chronological order, and we'll hit the late 90s, early 2000s, and then we'll jump into Kevin current timeline drama / Kate, and then we'll hit R&B at the end. So in the flashback, it is soon to be Thanksgiving. They are prepping the pre-prep for Thanksgiving. It's really weird that we're getting a Thanksgiving episode and it's going to be March. That's really weird, and especially because it seemed like for a while and prior to taping for this season, like I don't know why they didn't adjust the timeline and do some jumps. And I feel like there were some moments where they could have let the storyline breathe, and where they could have said, well, nothing's going on in this moment, and then we're going to get like 2 weeks later, so it could be more at a place of like towards the end. But I guess they're trying to compact a year in the life of the Pearsons into this season. It's just really weird that we're getting Thanksgiving and it's March. I'm just saying, it's almost Easter. Like it could be Easter. You could have made an Easter dinner that they were prepping for, but whatever. It's not, I didn't write it. It's not me. So anyhow, Kevin and Sophie are visiting, of course, to get ready. I don't know, are they living there now? I don't know. They're close enough by that they're visiting. And Rebecca is there with PTA dad, and she invites him to Thanksgiving dinner. Miguel and her are on this whole little Emerald Lagasse trip where they're bamming in the kitchen, and we're seeing them kind of like do this flirtatious banter situation going on where Miguel really kind of goes after PTA dad, and Rebecca's, trying to say, hey, I like him. He's sweet. He's cute or whatever. But it's obvious to all of us out here in the real world that Miguel is really crushing on Rebecca, as he always has been. And I've always been team Miguel. But I do think that the fact that he is so heavy into Rebecca, and we know that he kind of always was very much like to Jack, like, you don't deserve Rebecca. You're making stupid decisions, and Rebecca's the best woman ever. That kind of seemed really shady because that was your best friend. So I don't understand where they're going with this particular timeline, because I could have sworn that in season 1, when they gave us the information about how Rebecca and Miguel kind of got together via Facebook, that they had stopped talking for like 9 years. So the fact that we're getting them now, I'm guessing they're building up to whatever fallout they had, and then they're going to show them getting back together during like whatever would be like the second half of this season. But it just feels weird. It just feels weird for the timeline. Anywho, while they're there, Kevin and Sophie are having issues. He's starting to drink heavily. Of course, people have noticed that the young Kate's character, they've been putting her in like padding and fat suits to make her show that she's starting to gain weight. And they're both starting their kind of enabling behavior where they're not going to say anything to each other. More importantly, we find out that Kevin cheated on Sophie. I don't remember if they ever canonically mentioned that in the earlier seasons, or if it was just kind of like they fell out. But I think we kind of suspected that something major drove them apart, and that's what it was. He cheated. I feel like, they're bringing Sophie back up so heavily, and there's potential for, of course, they're trying to tease this whole, like, is Kevin going to get with Madison, or is Kevin going to get with Sophie? And I kind of just wish that Kevin would be with someone completely different. At this point now, these relationships are like highly damaged, and unless somebody starts going to therapy. Ooh, sorry about that. Unless someone starts going to therapy, I don't personally want to see him with either one of these women. I would be much more comfortable with him getting with Madison. And I feel like that was the only reason for showing what happened in the past, aside from the fact that one of the things we get to see is that Kate stood by Kevin and didn't stand with Sophie. Now listen, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel as though they have done a whole lot to showcase that Sophie and Kate grew up as best friends, but they stopped being best friends for a long time. I don't remember them being particularly close as teenagers. Kevin and her were spending time. I seem to very vividly recall her even as a kid and as a teenager complaining about Sophie and Kevin and how Kevin stole her best friend. So this whole idea of her like standing by Kevin and Sophie being surprised by it as a young adult person, it's like, no, that's your brother. That's your twin brother. You're supposed to stand by him. Now you can tell him off. You can cuss him out and say, what are you doing? And bop him upside the head and say, get your life together. And you need to tell her. But I completely like, it makes sense that she wouldn't tell Sophie, that she would instead press on him and say, you need to tell Sophie that you did this. Anyhow, that was the flashback part. They stand together, two peas in the pod, and we see them. They are on their journey to be enabling each other, as we have seen since season 1. So now we're going to hop back over into present day, where all of that connects in with present day, what's going on. Right now, what's going on is Kevin is a 21st century man. He is trying to be supportive of Madison and her new boyfriend, Elijah. And he's serving them breakfast. He's making them waffles. But of course, Elijah is the man of the hour. He's got his little blueberry muffins that he brings in. And everyone is raving about his blueberry muffins. And nobody is talking about Kevin making these waffles for everybody. Kevin is trying so hard to be new age and supportive. And it makes me frustrated that no one is seeing that. Now, in the midst of all of this, Kate and Toby are quickly declining. Toby is there. He's on the phone with his job 24/7, not spending time with Kate, not spending time with the kids. It's so frustrating because I feel like Kate and Toby have been through so much and have overcome so much that it would seem like something as small, I don't want to say it's small, but Toby seemingly has a really good job and seemingly has gotten this job and seems like he has done well in this job since the time that the show was out, and he has been growing in this job. He seems like he's like a big wig kind of with this job. So I would imagine he's making a reasonable income, supporting his family. And Kate is still a part-time teacher at a blind school. So what is she possibly making? Like even in California, like maybe 30,000 because she's part-time. Maybe she would be making 60,000 if she was full-time, but I don't even think she's making that much. Why then? Because she's not managing Kevin's career. She's not managing Kevin. She's just being a stay-at-home mom. Why would they not just relocate for Toby? That just does not make sense to me at all. It's not logical. Nowhere in the realm of managing a family, especially, and it's not like he's in the boonies. He's in San Francisco? Like I guarantee you they got a blind school out there. Like everything that she has in LA, I guarantee you they have it out there in San Francisco. So what they're doing right now is just making Toby out to be the bad guy, choosing his career over his family, when I guarantee you he is now pulling the major income to supply the family with opportunity. So none of that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. So we have that going on. Then we have Kevin making waffles, trying to win Madison and Elijah over, trying to be supportive, and he starts talking about Thanksgiving. Oh yeah, we're gonna have great Thanksgiving, Pearson family Thanksgiving. I can't wait. And Madison keeps side-eyeing Kate and giving Kate the little googly eyes. And it's very clear early on into the show that like Madison is not down for Thanksgiving. So by the time all of them go over with Kevin to a taping of The Manny, and they're making googly eyes, and he's like, okay, what's going on? And so Madison springs it on him. I don't want to go to the Pearson Thanksgiving. I actually want to go hang out with Elijah. Oh, and I want to take our like 1-year-old twins. Like the twins are 1, 2 at most. And I don't think he was wrong for saying that. People saying that he was wrong for bringing up he brings up Rebecca's illness and says, you're going to take them away from what might be the last good Thanksgiving my mom could have. Like, he is not wrong for that. Look, guys, we have to be realistic here. Madison does not have family. Kevin has family. They need to be there. Kevin's family is likely who's going to take care of the twins if something should happen to Madison or Kevin. It's almost a no-brainer from that standpoint. Now, she has every right to get in a relationship, to find love and romance. But she's also just dating this dude. So it makes zero sense, especially when your very wealthy movie star baby daddy says, oh, just come along. I'll buy you a ticket. Like, for the last Thanksgiving that his mother may have in her memory. None of that makes, and then they tried to make Kevin out to be the bad guy. Like, I feel like I could hear Nicki Minaj saying, you pinning me to be the bad guy. Like, I could hear her Chun-Li voice in my head when they said that. Like, Kevin is actually being really kind and thoughtful and logical. Now, should they have actually talked it out? Yes, because Kevin did do what he always does, which is just jump in. But what did he do? He jumped in to make things easier. He said, I've gotten the plane ticket. You know, I have everything that you need. I sent you the itinerary. Can you look over it to see which flight you want? Like, he's trying to make it as easy for her as possible. And she's just like, hard no. Nope, I want a quiet Thanksgiving with Elijah. Girl, go over to Philadelphia for one night, have Thanksgiving, and then go spend the next 3 days with Elijah. Like, it just did not make sense to me. Kate does not stand with Kevin in this and calls Kevin out on not letting Madison move on. What has he not done to let Madison move on? Like, seriously, in that moment, like, none of what she was saying makes sense. And I think she's acting out of her frustration with Toby instead of actually looking at the growth and how open-minded and supportive and co-parenting Kevin has been. I really seriously hope at this point, like, I am low-key rooting for Kevin just to go to court and say, I want full custody of my kids. Because Madison, I don't know that she loves her kids. I would never advocate for a mom losing their kids, but like, just nothing in her behavior is making her seem like she really is as invested as Kevin is. And he wants to be the lead parent, but she's not helping him to. And she's also not doing much to make it easier when he is trying to financially make things easier and close the gaps. So then at the end of the night, he goes back and apologizes to Madison, even though he wasn't really in the wrong. And they smooth things over. And then here comes big and bad Elijah out to say, hey, you know, if you're thinking that you're going to just swoop in and you're going to do this and you're going to make a play for her, and I'm going to be here and we're going to wait, you're going to have to wait me out and you're going to be waiting a long time. Like, dude. That's her baby daddy. She got 2 kids by him. Like, that was so out of pocket. That was out of pocket. Look, flag on the play. You're done. You're out of here. Like, and this is why folks need to have rules and you need to have parameters for how long you wait before you introduce people to your kids, because he is coming in and those babies are young. He's coming in really quickly to play stepdaddy to her kids. I'm just saying, it's just weird. Now about all of that, so now we're at minute 18. All of that was the beginning. So little of this episode was actually dedicated to our little island girl. And I'm so frustrated because it was such a good storyline, getting to see Beth struggle with this make or break moment for her studio, where we get to see that moment, you know, what leads her to that moment that we saw at the end where she is having her studio and her studio seems to be very successful. We're getting to see her on the path to making that come to fruition. And we get to see a little bit more of the backstory of like how much she lost confidence in herself, and how this is a moment where not only is she passing on the confidence to these young dancers, but that she's gaining her confidence back. Susan Kelechi Watson was just on her game with the writing piece that she added in, and also just for the performance. She was amazing. And that moment at the end of the night, where Randall says to Deja, Tess, and Annie, you're not going to remember a lot from your childhood, but you need to remember this moment right here, because that woman on stage, your mother, is the most amazing. Like, that moment, oh my gosh, I could have sobbed if my TV wasn't acting like a full hot mess. And so I got to see the end part in segments. So I never even got to see the last words when she finally picks up the phone She calls her dance instructor. So backstory to this is that in the future story, in the past story, where it's almost Thanksgiving, Beth and Randall are out at dinner and she runs into her old dance instructor. We find out a little bit more about what happened. It wasn't just that her mom could not afford the dance school anymore, or that, because of her dad's death, they couldn't really afford it. It was actually because she got injured shortly after her dad's passing. And her dance instructor basically dropped her like a hot potato. And so she runs into him and he's basically like, yeah, so good to see you. Like, he doesn't seem like he remembers anything about how damaging he was to her. And she doesn't have the confidence to confront him then. Fast forward into the current timeline, and it's coming up for these spring recital. This is going to be like a make or break moment for her dancers, press for her studio, but also if her dancers can get into this prestigious academy, can get into any academies, then it's going to help them, because it's going to look back like these dancers came out of her studio. So this is a big moment for her, and she's putting her faith in the dancer who's not necessarily the best dancer, but has the most heart and the most promise. And she's building her up, and oh my gosh, Beth is just doing this. She is just like, that speech, I'm going to find it printed, and it's going to become an apparition. It's going to become an affirmation, because she was just so encouraging to that young woman. And girl dances, and she's beautiful, stunning young dancer, and she falls, and Beth goes out on the stage and sits with her. Like, that moment was just a gorgeous moment, just completely amazing, and just such a Beth moment. And so that's when Randall tells the girls, like, look at what your mother is doing, look at how she's building this girl up. This is the kind of woman that your mother is. You need to keep this in mind. She's amazing. Best moment of the night by far. And so I'm just disappointed that we didn't get more of Beth in this episode, because I literally feel like if the whole episode was 40 minutes long, we probably only got 15 minutes of Beth. But it's the title of the episode is Our Little Island Girl Part 2. Make Beth the focal point of the entire episode. Like, we just had so much time wasted on those flashbacks and on Kevin and Madison and Sophie, when we could have gotten that in a whole nother episode next week. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So that is my pet peeve with the show, is they won't commit to giving, Miguel and Toby and Beth storylines when these are not secondary characters. Like, yes, they're not a part of the core Pearsons, but they have all been here since season 1. So it's give them those moments to shine. I would not be surprised if Susan got a supporting actress nomination in the Emmys once, when that next Emmy season comes up for this episode. I would not be surprised if they didn't submit this. And so it makes me frustrated that this episode wasn't more of that, because I think there was so much more to be had. In fact, I think they could have easily have filmed and shown more of, like, her having not just the flashbacks with her and her dad, but also more of the flashbacks of her in the studio dancing. But also, we never saw young Beth and Randall again after the failed confrontation with the director, with the old director teacher. And I feel like that was a missed moment, like getting to see them leave and drive away in the evening, and to see her kind of close that door on that part of her life and not open it back up for so long. And then it just was like, we were just here, and it was like spring recital time. There was no lead into it. There was a very small intro at the beginning, and that was it. So that was just disappointing to me. Overall, I enjoyed the episode. I would definitely say I'll give the episode a 7. It's not one of my best, but it's not because of the Beth storyline. Like, the Beth storyline, I would give it 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 easily. And if they had made the whole episode, or at least 90% of the episode, dedicated to Beth, I think this would have been one of the best episodes of the season, hands down. It makes me sad that it feels like they weren't willing to commit to Beth as a character more, to give her that more screen time that she deserved. So that's a little bit of a letdown, and especially on the heels of finding out that we're going to be in hiatus for another 2 weeks, just to not get enough and feel like that was short-sighted. It just felt like it wasn't developed enough, and I did not love that part. So those are my thoughts on tonight's episode of This Is Us. I mean, still, still great, guys, but could it have been better? Yes, it could have been. Ignore me, I'm cracking my knuckles. Yeah, I at this point now, I'm not vested. I don't have any hope for liking Kate or Toby by the end of the show. I don't have any hope at all of liking either of those characters. I think I would just be very much like, because even in the season, in the flash forwards of Kate getting married, I don't feel anything toward her and that new guy, and I don't foresee us getting enough of them to make me care that she's marrying him. I feel like, if anything, I'm still kind of Team Toby, although I want Team Toby to not be so short-sighted. I understand, especially being that he was out of work for so long, why he's so passionate, but I understand that Kate feels like it's a rejection of them. It just feels horrible that it's almost like they are living two separate lives, and neither one of them is really willing to compromise and come together to make their family work. And I kind of feel like that's what's going on with Kevin and Madison. Kevin has made some significant changes, turned down movie opportunities so that he can stay there, film there, be there for his family. And it's not seeming like they're meeting in equal parts to make that work. So again, you guys are making me defend Kevin, and that makes me feel so uncomfortable. I love Justin Hartley, but I don't like Kevin, so it makes me so uncomfortable that you're making me feel like I have to defend Kevin. But I'm Team Kevin right now. I don't care. I'm not Team Kevin and Sophie, guys. I don't have any investment in that relationship. I never liked Sophie. I didn't like little girl Sophie. I don't care about grown woman Sophie. Give him somebody completely new. He needs to start fresh. Let him find somebody completely fresh, mature, ready to be a mom, a stepmama to 2 kids. Have at it. Or just let him be solo. It's okay. You do not need, let him be married to himself. I mean, I know he has a ring going in the future, but daggone it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't know what's going to happen. We have until March 8th. So I will see you guys March 8th. Until later. Toodles.